Barry Bennett, the campaign manager for Ben Carson in his maiden voyage to become the presidential nominee. Barry Bennett leaving that campaign in December and then joining Donald Trump as a senior advisor on January 7th. And we're live today at Barry Bennett's office at 1717 Pennsylvania Avenue, overlooking the White House. Barry and Corey Lewandowski, another good friend of mine and former Trump campaign manager, Corey Lewandowski and Barry Bennett founding Avenue Strategies. Right, Barry? You guys are the founders of it.
We are.
And it's pretty exciting stuff. We're going to talk a little bit about that, but fascinating stories that we have. We're looking forward to this week's inauguration. Democrats going bananas. Now 39 of them, I understand, in Congress are not going to attend the inauguration, but I'm happy about that because more tickets for us. You know, you don't want to go. It's a free country. Hey, this segment brought to you by House of Delegates member in Virginia, Republican from Virginia Beach, District 21, Ron Villanueva, wishing all of us a great inauguration week. And his thoughts go with Donald Trump on Friday as he puts his hand on the Bible and becomes the 45th president of the United States. Ron Villanueva, Virginia Beach, running for re-election. He'll be on the ballot in a June primary. So be sure you put that down. For more information, go to ronv21.com. That's ronv21.com. And this message paid for and authorized by Trump supporter and enthusiast, House of Delegates member Ron Villanueva for re-election for the House of Delegates. Barry, good to have you back. Fascinating conversation that we had. You've been through so much. We were talking a little bit about when you thought Trump was going to win. I was there. I had the honor of broadcasting Trump Tower the 3 days, the Friday, Monday, and Tuesday before the election and stay the weekend. Mm-hmm. And, you know, what had happened is, I guess, as the campaign grew and Kellyanne came in and Paul Manafort, some other people, you know, they brought a lot of professional, I would guess you would call them professional political operatives.
Yeah.
Not necessarily the believers in the movement like I was. And so I was sitting there for 3 days. We were on the air just like now, 5 hours a day, and there was bustle coming in and out, and the Trumps and everything would go in and out of the elevator, and there was all the staff there on the, I think we were on the 14th floor. But Monday and Tuesday, Friday, Monday and Tuesday, I didn't get a good feeling in there. I mean, there were a lot of people on that staff that really didn't think he was going to win.
Yeah, I mean, I think that
you obviously excluded from that and others, but a lot of people I talk, you could just tell with the body language.
Well, you know, the vaunted data operation had Mr. Trump losing by a couple of points, and,
right.
and Hillary's vaunted data operation had her winning, but at the same couple of points. It's just that they were wrong. There were a lot of people out there who planned on voting for Mr. Trump who either weren't being polled or weren't interested in having everyone know that they were voting for Mr. Trump. But I go back to, I drove across Northeast Ohio on a back road in the fall.
When? In the fall?
September, October. And, you know, I'm a political junkie, so I like to count yard signs. And I saw 54 yard signs.
Barry, that is a political junkie.
Yeah. 54 yard signs. Now, 4 of them were Hillary for president. The other 50 were for Donald. But it wasn't the 50. It was that about half of them were handmade. And, you know, it's hard enough to get someone to put a yard sign in their yard. You know, we all do it. Try to convince people to put a yard sign in their yard. It is much harder to get someone to go into their garage and make a sign and put it in their yard. You have to be passionate. And we saw that all over the country. We saw it all over Virginia. People would go out and make their own signs. They weren't waiting on the campaign to knock on the door to give them a sign. Those knocks never came. But they went to the garage and they made their own sign. And that's a level of intensity and a level of passion, frankly, we haven't seen.
So
there were no Bush handmade yard signs.
No, not a one. There were no Kasich handmade signs.
No.
So these handmade signs, you know, as you were saying that, I'm glad you mentioned it because I never really thought of that as a barometer, but I think you're right in this. I'm kind of thinking, you know, I saw a lot of them also, not in the metro areas, but a lot in the more rural
where real
areas.
people live.
Yeah, where real people live.
Yeah.
And a lot of them handmade, especially during Halloween, I saw a lot.
Yeah.
And,
I mean, farms across the state.
Yeah,
You would drive
painted
by.
on the side of the barns
Yeah,
and stuff.
yeah.
But you're right. I mean, that you think about what it takes to just have somebody to put up a yard sign.
Oh.
I mean, it's not an easy
We build entire
task.
organizations around just trying to get yard signs out, right?
Right. And
These
then to make
delegates, they spend so much of their time trying to get yard signs out, and people were actually going into the garage and making their own Trump sign. Pretty amazing.
That is pretty amazing. So that's when you kind of had a feeling something was going on.
Well, there was
was
intensity
not
that wasn't
reflective.
being measured at that
Right,
point. It was clear. It was clear.
That was just not. It was not on the radar screen.
Yeah. And it was
Yeah.
people that don't normally have yard signs.
Right. Well, yeah. Well, that's
Yeah.
the thing, because if they did, a lot of the times they would have contacted them. The other thing is, everybody criticized and said that Trump had no ground game, and he really didn't.
Yeah. Well, not in the way that we normally
The traditional ground
measure
game, but he had
ground
like I was a chairman of Virginia, and I don't know how many people we had, 25 or 30 when we finally got it up to. Now, Clinton campaign of Virginia at last count had 197 right, paid staff. That was in October. I'm sure they added some. It was probably well over 200, but October 1st they had 197 paid staff in Virginia.
Yeah.
We had 24. They had 197. I mean, you can't compete with that.
Yeah.
But we had this volunteer base, Barry, that was huge, but it was loose.
Yeah, but
know what I'm
social
saying?
media has replaced a lot of what we do traditionally on the ground, right? Door knocking, making sure your neighbors get out to vote. People today on Facebook, they know how their neighbors are going to vote because they know what they're posting. They see that
Right.
on their feed. And social media, Ben Carson was the first candidate to get to 5 million friends on Facebook, right? And Trump passed him right around January 2016, which was amazing because Hillary was at like 2 million. Republicans really use social media this cycle better than anyone ever has. If you look, I came to town in '87, and at that point, America got their
You
news.
came, Barry, from Ohio.
I came from Ohio. At that point, Americans got their news at 6:30 from Jennings Brokaw, rather.
Right.
That was it. Those were the news. Today, the network anchors of those three entities have a combined 900,000 person Twitter following. Okay, Donald Trump has 17 million. The way people consume information and the way it affects their decision making has totally changed. And they pay attention to their feeds more than ever. I can't get my mom off Facebook, right? And Trump utilized that. He played it like a Stradivarius. It was perfect. It was perfect. And that substituted a lot of the traditional need for a ground game.
And that's obviously what made a big difference in there, having that. Let's get to the convention situation. I know we were there. I was a national delegate with my wife. And the Cruz speech, we were going crazy. We were there and we were screaming Trump in the middle of a speech, and then I forget what else we were yelling. It was not pleasant. Was that? But I know part of it. Oh, we were screaming, "We want Trump." I remember that, and that started when we realized, because you could see the teleprompter, right, from where we were, and I guess I was from Virginia, but I was sitting with a New York delegation, and they could see on the teleprompter that there was no endorsement coming.
Yeah,
and so they went crazy. Can Cruz ever recover from that, Barry?
well, it was a massive miscalculation.
Massive.
I mean, I walked back that night back to the hotel with some Team 100 members, some big donors to the party, and they were all from Texas. And we were in the elevator in the hotel going up to our rooms, and one of them volunteered to me. He's like, "I will never write that man a check ever again." So he did some real damage to himself. Politics is a very forgiving sport. There are a lot of people who've been written off who are right back in it. But he did not help himself. And I think he understands that today. He certainly didn't. He and his team grossly miscalculated how much leash they had at the convention. And, today he's been very helpful, but that took a long time.
But, I also think they miscalculated the enthusiasm there for Trump.
Oh, yeah.
Because, going into this thing, I was from the Virginia delegation, and we were fighting Ken Cuccinelli that entire week. I ran against him for delegation chairman. We got there on Friday. I think the thing started Monday. So the Fräulein, my wife, Ann, got there. We got there on Friday. And I started fighting him as soon as I pulled into the hotel. And we fought him for 7 days and nonstop. But I've told the story. They actually believed if they could have unbound the delegates somehow, that Cruz would have gotten the nomination. And, I've seen a lot of people delusional, but that to me was one of the most ridiculous. And they actually believed that.
Yeah.
Like they had no clue that if they unbound the delegates or not, we'd have got the exact same number.
Right. Exactly.
I mean, they had no clue to this
or
day
what it would have done
on.
to the party had they
it
even
would
been
have
successful
been-
in unbounding.
it
I
would
mean,
have been
it would have been the end of the party.
You know,
right?
and
he wouldn't have stood a
blew it up.
chance. Ted Cruz. I
He
mean,
wouldn't have stood a chance.
I share Ted Cruz's position on a lot of issues. I'm not a Cruz fan, not because of his politics, because of his personality, it was really, really malpractice advice he was getting.
Total mess. When the deliberations were going for who to choose for a vice president, I know you were involved in a lot of that. Where did you lean, and were you surprised at all at how it ended up with Governor Pence?
No, I mean, I've been a Pence fan for a long, long time. Mike is solid, big brain, big heart, conservative, Christian. I mean, he's everything that I could possibly want in someone a heartbeat away from the presidency. So I was delighted that Mike was. There could have been other people that were just, who was good, but I think Mike was a perfect choice.
And when the campaign went to the fall and they brought in Kellyanne Conway, I know, when did you leave around? It was after the convention.
Right before the convention.
Right before
July,
the convention.
Yeah.
Just when they brought Kellyanne on.
Well, Paul was still there, and then that fizzled out, and Kellyanne and Bennett came in and saved the day.
I mean, I'm not shy about saying I was not a Paul Manafort fan. I've been over that 100 times, but I thought he was a disaster. Although you did, I think somebody told me the other day the best thing you did was actually convince President-elect Trump that he actually had to buy ads and go on TV.
They did put some finally in, I think, Indiana and Nebraska.
Right.
They finally ran some ads, which were wildly effective. Surprise, surprise.
Surprise. Access Hollywood. I remember when the tape came out. I want to get your perspective on it.
Yeah.
I remember there was a conference call of the surrogates put together very quickly, and it was very short. And they basically said, anybody that has meetings now, we want to figure this out. And then I talked to somebody offline privately, so I can't see on the air who it is, high up in the campaign. And I said, wow, I don't think this is such a big deal. I mean, there's, locker room talk and, can we get past it? And the person said to me, we don't know what else is out there. I know that was after you were not officially with the campaign, but who was still close to the people. What was the mood in there that Friday night?
Well, I think there was a lot of panic. But, I was of the school that we needed to, we can condemn the language and rally behind the message. I don't believe this election was ever really about Donald Trump, right? It was about his message. It was about making America great, putting America first, bringing back jobs. And I think that the surrogates needed to give people the ability to be unhappy about the language, but still supportive of the message. And so I wasn't one of those people that went out and just said it's not a big deal, because I didn't think that really helped us. I was part of the camp that said, I don't like the language. I certainly don't want my kids to use that kind of language. But it doesn't deter me from supporting the mission here. And that is, Washington needs an enema, and Donald Trump is going to provide it. And that's more important to my kids than behavior.
So it was not the messenger, it was the message that won the campaign.
I truly believe that this movement chose Donald Trump. He didn't choose them. I mean, you've been part of the movement for a long, long time, right? This was just the latest manifestation of it. And finally, we became a majority. But we've been fighting the establishment for a long, long time. And he was brilliant in leading that effort.
Look, there was no question, and certainly that Access Hollywood day was a dark day. And I'm going to answer your question. You don't have to answer it because you do have a new firm to run, so everything's on the table. But I had heard that, and I found this surprising. I know there was a number of people after the Access Hollywood tape came out that just fold their tent and thought he should get out of the race. Of course, I not being one of them, but there were some. Our representative in Northern Virginia, Barbara Comstock, being one of them, with that, told me to get out of the race. Yeah. I can't really get over that. But we also heard that the chairman of the Republican National Committee, who's now his chief of staff, told him that night he'd have to get out of the race, that it was going to tear the party down, ballot, they were going to lose everything. And so, having said that, and I know that's what a number of people have said, that Reince Priebus gave him that suggestion, of which Mr. Trump rejected.
There's a meeting I'd like to have a recording of.
I know. Now, he can deny it, but several people have said that. So he asks him to get out of the race. He doesn't. But then he turns around and picks him as his chief of staff. So I'm thinking to myself, Barry, and I want to get your perspective on this. I'm thinking to myself, okay, here's a guy that in the worst day of the Trump campaign abandoned his leader. Okay. But then...
According to media accounts.
According to media accounts. Assuming he did that.
Yeah.
2 months later, Trump has him as chief of staff so that he can get his agenda through Congress. So he put that aside and said, here's the best guy to get my agenda through Congress because I can't do it on my own because I don't have the relationships. Yeah. Evaluate that whole thing for me.
Well, I think that he sees Chief Priebus as his Sherpa, right? He's a Washington Sherpa. He's not there to tell him what he thinks. He's not there to help him become a better person or all that kind of stuff that we hear from the Washington folks. He's there to help him navigate the dangerous and rough seas of Washington, D.C. I think Mr. Bennett and are there to amplify Mr. Trump's message and to help him do that. But Mr. Priebus's role is to help him guide through the pitfalls of Washington, of which there are many. Mike Pence really is going to lead the congressional offensive, if you will, on the issues. But, even now in the White House staff, the senior staff, there are only a couple guys who have ever worked in government before. That's a problem. You need to know where the bathrooms are and how to turn the lights on and how to get a computer and all those kind of things. But Mr. Trump has never needed someone to tell him how to say something or what to believe in. And so the traditional kind of chief of staff role doesn't really exist in this administration. It is literally the chief of the staff and not the shadow president. It's an important role. It's one Mr. Trump needs. Kudos to Mr. Trump for letting bygones be bygones and doing the best thing he could for the movement and his message and his agenda, because we all want to see that agenda passed and fast.
Bygones be bygones. I mean, I think that is a very telling decision he made.
Yeah. He doesn't get any credit for it.
No, he doesn't. I give him credit because I know it's true. But you really think about this. I mean, you got a guy that said, look, get out of the race. In your darkest time, they basically abandon you. And then for the good of what you think has got to get done for the country because you think he's best equipped, as you said, chief of the staff rather than just chief of staff, to get the trains to run on time.
Yeah.
He puts that aside and says, of the available people I have to get my agenda done, he's the best one available at this time.
Yeah.
And puts that aside. Not easy to do.
No, that's a very big...
I'm not sure that I could have done that.
Yeah, I mean, it would not have been my natural inclination.
Mine would have been...
I'm still fighting battles from...
Mine would have been... Remember the conversation we had on October 17th when Axel would come out? Okay, delete my number from your phone. Never, ever, ever call me again.
I'm still fighting battles from college CRs.
So, fascinating. Barry, I've only got another minute. Your opinion, first 2 weeks. Trump's biggest obstacle, what is it?
The problem is there are only so many hours in the day you can work. Now, Mr. Trump is relentless, 18, 19 hours a day. But don't burn out. Don't burn out too fast. You got to pace yourself. Those first batch of executive orders are going to change the world. But there are a lot of things to do, a lot of pieces to do it. Got to be smart, tactical, and getting it done. Don't give yourself some time. Rome wasn't built in a day. Washington isn't going to be fixed in one either.
Don't burn out. Get some sleep.
Get some sleep.
Remember, you're 70.
You're living in one of the most expensive, nicest prisons in the world.
And your family's
Take care of yourself.
Your family's not going to be there.
Yeah.
So I know he likes when his family's around, especially the little guy. I've heard that.
Yeah.
He likes hanging out with them. So they're not going to be there for a while. They finish school. But okay, Barry Bennett, it's a fascinating conversation. Now you spoiled me because you got so much insight. So, of course, as we're here this week, we're going to be begging every day for you to come back on the air.
Okay. All right.
I hope you'll accommodate us. But, Barry, I really appreciate the time. Fascinating insight for our listeners. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks for coming up and sharing this with the whole state, the Commonwealth.
The Commonwealth.
Even beyond, the People's Republic of Alexandria.
And beyond, as they say. And we want to thank again Barry Bennett, Principal at Avenue Strategies. We're live in Washington, D.C. We got another 30 minutes, and we're done for the day. And this has been a fascinating conversation with an individual who has been with two of the most riveting campaigns in presidential politics, all in the same 12 months. Unbelievable. You're on the John Fredericks Radio Network. I'll be right back.